Welcome to part 2 of loops. In this video, we're going to explore 4 loops, when to use it, and how to write one from scratch. Let's start with the for loop. We write for, and all of a sudden you can see different color coding. It's pink, the same as we have written for case. Pink is used to represent some sort of control of the flow of execution. Okay, we can control it based on what we write. Next, we give it a couple of parentheses, and inside the for loop, we need to write 3 different things. First is an initialization part where we declare a variable like int I equals 0 and then a semicolon. What have we done here? We have declared a variable inside this for loop. We'll look at it why once we complete this loop. The next part of the loop is a condition. Now, whatever is inside this loop will run as long as this condition is true, which means this is basically a boolean. We can write I is less than 5, semicolon, and the final part of a loop is the iteration or iterative statement. I don't know what exactly it is called, but it is where we update the value which is used to run the loop, which is I in this case. We write I plus plus or I plus equals 1. Both are correct. I plus plus is the shorthand form. This is the format of the loop. Now we write the body of the loop by writing 2 curly brackets. And this is the block which will run over and over again. For now, let's just debug.log hi. Now let me explain what's going on here. For an integer I equals 0, let's go to paint. Let's assume this is the block of code. We have a variable which is called I, and I is local to this loop. If I write I plus plus outside of this loop, there will be an error. The name I does not exist in the current context. Now when the loop is created, I has a default value of 0. Next, it immediately checks if this condition is true. At starting, I is equal to 0 and 0 is less than 5, which means this expression will be true. And as long as the condition is true, we do whatever is inside the loop, which means once it's done up until this semicolon, it doesn't perform the next, it directly does whatever is inside the loop. It will print hi. Okay, then once it's done and exits the loop, then it performs this third statement inside the loop, I plus plus. And what is I plus plus? We add 1 to I, which was 0. Now it becomes 1 and the whole steps repeats. Now the second time when the loop is run, there is no initialization statement. This part of the loop syntax is executed only in the beginning of the loop, and this part of the syntax is executed every iteration of the loop, but only after the content inside the loop is executed. Okay, now I is 1, 1 is less than or equals 5, then we print hi again, and then we update I by adding 1 to it, and I becomes 2. Similarly, 2 is less than 5, it will print hi again, update to 3, then 3 is less than 5, it will print hi again, and it gets updated to 4, 4 is less than 5, it will print hi again, and 4 is updated to 5. But now once I becomes 5, 5 is no longer less than 5. It is false. If this was less than or equal to, then it will run another loop again. And now because this condition is false, it will exit out of this loop, which means hi will be printed 5 times. This is how you do stuff 5 times. Now let's play the game and test it out. Create a game object. By the way, I pressed Ctrl-Shift-N to create a new game object. It's a shortcut. Then I added the loop example. go to the console, hit play, and you can see hi is printed 5 times. You can see hi is printed only once here, but there is a 5 here, which means it is printed 5 times. Now, what is the advantage of writing loops? We can now change this to 500, hit save, and then execute it again. Now, hi is displayed 500 times. That is the advantage. You can have custom control of how many times the code gets executed. Okay, so this is the for loop. Now, when do we use a for loop? You use for loop when you know exactly how many times you want to repeat something. For example, you can spawn 5 enemies when the level starts. Okay, int I equals 0, I less than 5, I plus plus, and then we write the code to spawn the enemy. Okay, we can easily change it to another custom variable instead of hard coding a value called 5, and then we have a lot more dynamic control. So this is when you should use for loop, when we know exactly the number of times that we have to do something. Okay, in the next video we'll talk about while loops. I will see you there.